Hello and welcome to this video where we are playing Cities Skylines for the first time on the channel. And in this video I'm going to be showing you how I make what I consider, attractive starting suburbs in Vanilla Cities Skylines. So not going to be using any mods. That means things can take a little bit longer, and so that is why this video is in a time-lapse form. And the first thing we're starting out with, as you can see on the screen, is our easy beginners interchange. This is an interchange I use all the time. Where I'm from in the UK, these interchanges are actually pretty common. Maybe the roundabout isn't kind of like built up above the ground, but it might be on like ground that's built up like a berm or something. So yeah, I tend to always build an interchange a bit like that, and I'm using all dirt roads at the moment just to save money in this very start of the game, because you kind of race through that initial budget, and it's really important to make sure that you've included everything that your city needs so that it doesn't just sort of die within the first 5 minutes of hitting play. So yeah, after the interchange, the next most important thing to do for me was the road layout, and I was planning on having residential over on the left there, and as you can see I'm going to have industry and our kind of initial services over on the right here. So you have to place down water, sewage and electricity, otherwise your city will die. And also try to remember water pipes under the ground and electricity lines if you need them to jump the power across, because once you've run out of money, if you don't have those things, it's quite hard to go back and change it. At this point I realised I'd actually done my interchange slightly wrong. I'd made it way too high in the air. It was like 3 times as high as it needed to be, so I had to rebuild it, which wasted more of my money. But it was fine. I actually did just about have enough to rebuild it, and I noticed it as I was upgrading the road. So fortunately we don't start out with highways unlocked, so I'm having to make these all just one-way roads initially, but I do upgrade the whole interchange into highway roads as soon as we unlock them later in the video. And then you can sit back and relax and watch your zoning come in, which is always a fun moment to see the start of your city. And then I realised I had forgotten my own advice and I had not jumped power across, so I built these little industry buildings over on the right there to jump the power across. And I love building industry in these little 3x3s because it just builds all these warehouses, which I think looks so much nicer than the 4x4 industry zonings you get. I do include a little bit of 4x4 just to fill the demand for industry, and also because I think they look okay in moderation. I just think it looks bad when you kind of blanket 4x4 zone industry. And kind of same goes for commercial and housing. And look at that, we've reached a little hamlet, which is very exciting. That's our first sort of progression mark, and thank God that meant we unlocked budget and loans, so I could decrease how much we were spending on electricity and water, and also take the loans that we needed to be able to build out the next few suburbs in our city and build those water lines, which I'd forgotten. So luckily I could get rid of those annoying flashing watermarks. And yeah, my citizens also immediately demanding garbage, so you just saw me build a recycling centre. And then we're straight onto building these next 2 little neighbourhoods, and starting off with the road layout, I wanted to try and make something a bit more interesting now that we were into the game, so not just making plain old squares. A lot of the neighbourhoods do end up being kind of like broadly squares, but I just try to keep the roads a bit curvy and interesting every now and then so that it's more interesting to look at from above. And I also in this suburb wanted to safeguard a little bit of space in that bottom left-hand corner to build a primary school campus later on. And then the rest of the suburb I was happy for just to be kind of shops with a little high street opposite the primary school, which I thought looked cute, and residential zoning. And just in this suburb, like in the other one, I'm leaving a lot of space for pathways and fences and detailing with trees, and I think that just makes the suburbs all look so much more aesthetic. We haven't actually unlocked those detailing tools yet at this point in the game, but I do leave space for them this early on so that as soon as we do unlock them we can start building them in. And yeah, I've just got a few little shots here of how our city was beginning to look. I was really happy with how all these areas were coming to life, all the little high streets, and yeah, industry not looking too bad either. I've left a lot of space there to build out more sewage and electricity as soon as we need it. The way I handle water is pretty much just sticking a water tower in every roundabout, and yeah, the interchange was struggling a bit because of the roads, but luckily we had hit Worthy Village, so up to 900 people, and that meant we unlocked districts, which I thought I was going to be able to make entire districts historic, but as you can see on the screen, I actually have to go around and make every single building historic by hand, which I've not put you through seeing all of it, but yeah, I do this because I don't really like how these buildings look when they level up. I kind of think the level 1 and 2 buildings look nicer, so yeah, went around and did that all manually. Obviously you could probably just do that really easily with a mod, but this is Vanilla Cities Skylines, so we don't have a mod to do that. And then my citizens were also demanding fire protection and police, which I like to put in the industry area because the buildings are a bit uglier, to be honest. Well, not all of them, but some of them are a bit uglier, so I just think it looks a bit better with the industry stuff instead. And then we went on to building our third neighbourhood, and for this one I decided to leave a kind of like town square in the middle where I could build a little plaza, and I also, because we'd unlocked districts, decided to give it the European suburbia theme. I really love the European suburbia assets, all of the different residential assets that you get with that. And it just keeps all the different suburbs looking a little bit different from each other, stops it kind of like all looking just blanket the same. And again, same with the commercial. I feel like within each of my suburbs I try to mix up what housing themes or specializations I'm using, just so that each neighborhood ends up having its kind of own little feel. And I also stuck in a bit of healthcare into that neighborhood because it again just makes it look a little bit distinctive, a little bit different from the normal zoning. I forgot to put water pipes, which is literally my Achilles heel. I always forget to put water pipes in every neighborhood, but luckily I had enough money and I was able to just do it straight away afterwards, which was fine for that. And then we leveled up again to Tiny Town, which I feel like it always happens so quickly in the beginning of the game. And that meant that I definitely needed to build out this primary school campus, which I'd left the space for earlier on. And I was really happy with how this turned out. This is how I like to build all of my schools in City Skylines, really. And the way I do it is I use maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 even different school assets paired together to make it look a bit more like an actual school campus. I mean, especially in these suburbs where things are a bit more spread out. I mean, maybe in a city or downtown, you might have your school buildings all in one building or like way closer together. But I think for suburbs, this is just a lot more realistic, and it means I can do a bunch of detailing around the outside, adding kind of like play areas. Yeah, I had like a playground in the back there, and also a car park. I feel like no school is complete without a car park, especially in these suburbs. And yeah, a little eating area for the kids as well. And yeah, I feel like this just keeps the suburbs all looking quite unique. And also this school campus has room for like 850 primary school kids or something, so it also just fills my education need for ages, so I don't have to worry about it a lot as every time I'm expanding. And excitingly, we'd also now unlocked our paths and some more roads, so this is when I decided to go through and detail up some of the suburbs. So yeah, adding paths, I mean for in-game connectivity as well, but also for aesthetic purposes. Yeah, I think it kind of serves both. And yeah, just adding in a few fences, a few paths, and a few trees to bring these suburbs to life a bit more. And I was really happy with how they were looking. I quite like to use different paths in each suburb or each neighborhood, and different types of fence in each neighborhood as well, again just to like give them all their own feel. And so I was happy that these were all turning out a little bit differently. I didn't want everything to look super samey. And I was also excited to create the little plaza that I'd left space for in this neighborhood. I do actually change it a bit from what I do initially, because I hadn't really realized that I'd built this neighborhood on a sloped terrain. So it wasn't totally flat, and if you've played City Skylines, you know that if you don't build on flat ground, things don't look great. I also needed a bunch of trees down the right hand side there just to protect this suburb a little bit from the ugly industry that's next door. So yeah, this was how the plaza was looking, and I decided to delete 2 of those assets, which are from the pedestrian pack, I believe, and they're the kind of food truck plazas. And so yeah, I just made a little bit of my own thing instead. And another point is, yeah, definitely don't forget to detail up your industry area as well. I feel like it's super easy to make industry look more interesting by adding in your service assets into the industry areas, varying what size zoning you're doing, and also adding car parks as well. Again, just pretty realistic. Like, often people might be like driving to work out in the suburbs, so they're gonna need a car park or somewhere to park their car. And so I was very happy with how that was turning out. And also some fences, because you shouldn't really just be able to walk into any random industry area. And this is how we were looking so far. I was really pleased with how the whole place was coming along. Yeah, I was just really happy. So excitingly, it was time to jump over to the other side of the highway and begin the kind of second phase of this sort of, the second phase of this first part, I suppose, of city building that I was doing. And over here, there was a few different things I wanted to include. We have a bunch of residential demand, as you can see on the screen. So yeah, I definitely needed to leave a lot of space for residential zoning. And I decided to use this big park to make this area look a bit different. And I wanted to use I can't remember what they're called, but like the sort of sustainable residential buildings. I really like how they look. I kind of have to hold myself back from using them too much in City Skylines because I think they're such nice assets. And I also decided to use the organic and local produce commercial buildings as well, which I think is pretty normal to pair those two together. I'm pretty sure they came in the same expansion pack and they look really nice together. Like, I feel like they fit in well. And then, yeah, I just needed to add in some connectivity to the lower suburbs as well, so everyone who wanted to get from one neighbourhood below the highway to one neighbourhood above the highway wasn't stuck having to go through the interchange, because that just makes the traffic way worse. So yeah, that was to try and keep the traffic pretty calm. And also it's a place for my buses to go when I eventually put in bus lines as well. And I was really happy with how this suburb came out. These assets are just beautiful. And yeah, then I realised I still needed a bunch more housing. So I decided to use some of the space over this side to also build some housing. But I wanted to use most of it to start building another trick for making attractive industry that I always use in the beginning. And that is the sort of base game forestry specialization that you can do, partly because it's really easy to paint down. You just have to paint down a bunch of trees like this. I mean, I'm doing vanilla, so I'm not using a tree brush or anything, so it took a bit of time, but if you have a tree brush, this is such a quick job, really. I think it looks really nice, and most of the buildings that grow in turn into trees, and only a few of them are warehouses, which is exactly what I wanted. So it's not just like a massive block of warehouses, but it kind of like really fits into the forest. So yeah, we're making really good progress at this point, and we made it to Boomtown, where we unlock transport, which is what we're going to be working on in the next episode. But also, very importantly to me, we had unlocked highways, so I could finally upgrade all of these roads that we'd used to build our interchange in the beginning into highway roads from normal roads, and that just means the traffic behaves way more normally for some reason. I mean, I don't really know why the game does that, but it's good, I think, because it's kind of makes sense with the real world that people would be driving on a highway if they're going down a motorway and onto an interchange. So yeah, that's what I decided to do here. And also adding in some bus lanes. I haven't actually done the bus lines in this episode. It's kind of just to remind myself where I want those buses to run in the future, but we'll be doing them in the next episode. And yeah, this interchange was just running so much more smoothly than it was before. I honestly love watching this interchange because yeah, it just works really well. I really do recommend it if you're wanting to have an easy interchange build as a beginner. And yeah, a little bit of death care as well, which I knew I wanted to build into a park area that we were having on that side. And then the next job was to do a whole load of detailing, which I really enjoy. And yeah, all of these roundabouts and kind of collector roads that run between the neighborhoods all just really benefit from kind of being surrounded by like greenery, which again I think is pretty normal, at least in the UK where I'm from. If you're driving down like a collector or a highway road, normally you've just got kind of like grass on either side of you or something, and so that's kind of what I was doing here. And I also wanted to make the water towers fit in a bit better as well, and so this is kind of how I detail up all of my roads. And yeah, then because I'd upgraded those roads to highways, we also needed a pedestrian crossing, which got so well used straight away, which I think is just always so satisfying to see, so that people can cross from one neighbourhood to another over the top of the highway. And then I finally had enough money to flatten out this very top area of our starting square, which I needed to do to build out the final suburbs that I wanted to do for this initial build. And these suburbs were mainly just residential and commercial, but the key build I wanted to include in them is what we're doing right now, is this high school build, or secondary school if you're from where I'm from. And again, same kind of concept that I used for the primary school build. I'm using like 3 different high school buildings in the game, and I also put in a gymnasium as well, because again it's just pretty realistic to have a gymnasium on a high school campus, and a bunch of car parking as well. So I think it just helps it look a bit more realistic for a suburban high school, and also means I don't need to worry about the education need for high school for ages either. And then at the bottom end, I'm going to have a bus interchange in the area below this high school that's on the screen at the moment. So I decided to build a bit more of an entrance round this side of the high school as well, so that it makes sense, so that any kids getting the bus to school can just cross straight over from that bus interchange once I build it into the high school area. And then it was on to fulfilling even more residential demand, which just never rests, which I'm personally fine with because I really enjoy building out these residential areas in the suburbs. And I was back to using European suburbia for this, but sticking with the organic and local produce commercial. So again, just changing up which assets I'm using next to each other, just to keep each suburb looking kind of fresh. And I gave this one this kind of little town square that also I feel like ties it in with the high school very nicely. And yeah, it's just a little bit of interest, really, something more interesting to look at. And then this was the final bit of this suburb, which I made a bit more spaced out with the houses. I wanted to put fences in between each house, and that's because we're right at the edge of the tile here, so to me it makes sense that the houses are kind of like getting further apart from each other as the city kind of turns into more rural land. Like, this is really the edge of the city over here. So yeah, I left a bunch of room for fences and of course pathways as well. And we still needed another few service buildings as well. I think I added in some police and fire, which I think I have 3 of each. I kind of forget how much police and fire the citizens demand in Cities Skylines. So we had a little bit of that over here. There's no shops in this little bit of the suburb because they've got really easy access to the shops in the neighbourhood just over. And this is how it was looking. I was really happy with how that final high school build turned out, and also the residential suburbs surrounding it. And so that leads us on to the final project that I had for this very first episode, which is this Riverside City Park. So if you've played City Skylines, a city park is nothing new to you. It's what we all use. I do think it's a really good expansion pack, just being able to make all of the parks look unique from each other, which is more normal for a city. Like, not every park looks the same. And yeah, one trick I use, especially on the water, is to just always put a bunch of rocks down along the coastline. I think it makes the riverside look a lot more realistic, because often you would have these kind of big rocks in a riverside in a city to help protect from, I think, like flooding and erosion and stuff. And I think it just looks a bit better than the sort of brown soil that the game creates automatically. So I only managed to level up the park, I think, to 2nd level in this part, so we're going to be finishing off in the next one. But I was really happy with this start. Had a few different activities each end of the park, so that there's a lot of liveliness wherever you kind of go, and also wanted to build a bit of a forest to protect the park from the highway over on the left there. And I thought the cemetery fit in with it really well too. It kind of just like blends in with those cafe buildings, because it's kind of a grassy asset, I guess. And so I was very happy with how that turned out, and I will be adding more to it, so this is not quite the final product that you're seeing just yet. And then the final service I needed to add in was these post offices. You don't need too many of those, so I just put one on each side of the highway. They're a great corner asset. I love to put them on a corner of 2 roads. So yeah, I just had 2 of those in, and then we had a final bit of detailing to complete with this little roundabout over here. And that pretty much brings us to the end of everything I completed today. And I'd really love to hear any feedback you have about this video. It's the first time I've played City Skylines on the channel, so let me know whether you feel like this video went too fast or even too slow. And if you enjoy this format or this game, I'm really open to hearing your comments and what you thought of it. But as ever, I really hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, please consider giving the video a like or perhaps even subscribing to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.